Hello everyone, this is Laco S and welcome to DCS World. In today's episode we're going to go over a overview of the cockpit for the A-4E Skyhawk mod. So as always we're going to start off on our bottom left and work our way around. Should be a relatively quicker video for my overviews because the A-4E Skyhawk does not have any thing on the walls on either side really. There's like one or two small things, but we'll get to those when we get to those. So starting all the way in the very back, we have stuff for your pilot. So you have the G-suit, you have the suit blower. Really the only thing important on this little panel up here is the oxygen switch, which you'll want to turn on for before flight. You also have the option to manually deploy the speed brake back here, if you need to. There's the canopy lever right here to raise and lower the canopy. Right back here we have the GCBS panel, which is not modeled, so we can skip that. Next up here is the AFCS panel, which is your basically your system's autopilot and flight controls. You have the ability to do to adjust the trim mode. That doesn't really do too much unless you need it for emergency. You have stability augmentation system. You always want to have this on. This keeps the aircraft flying a little bit steadier when it comes to the yaw, which is very important. And just in general, it makes the aircraft fly a little bit better. You have the ability to do a heading select autopilot mode, independent of an altitude pilot hold mode. And then to engage either the heading or the altimeter or the altitude or both, you have the off and engage switch down here. And just as importantly, we have the AFCS standby switch, which you will turn on as part of the start procedure to get the system warmed up and ready to use. Next panel up is the radar panel. You have your radar antenna tilt switch up here. And then you have a warning for you have an audio volume knob for your if it detects an obstacle along your path. And then up here you have the radar mode switch from off, standby, search, TC, and the air to ground. And air to ground is used for the automated bomb release system. I'm going to put that back in off. We have an angle of attack compensator right here. Other than that, we have up here the next important thing is the engine panel right here. This is the engine starter switch. To be careful when you're going to this switch here, because this is the drop tank pressurization switch. Either it's off, it's pressurized, or inflate refuel up here. And you have your fuel dump switches up here. And then down here you have your fuel control switch. Next up you have your throttle. Do keep a note that as part of the start procedure you will actually click the throttle more than once. So there's this is the fully down and locked position to turn it off. And then there's an ignition detent here, and then there's an actual full power, basically your normal operation detent right there. We're gonna bring the throttle up just so we can see all the stuff behind it. We have the rudder trim switch, which is modeled. And then behind here, you also have the flap switch. The flap handle, it's down. It goes up. This brings the flaps up. This deploys the flaps down. And then there's a stop in the middle. This is why when I did the controls video, I had you go to binding, because if you just bound like F, it'll just keep the flaps up, and it's technically not what you're supposed to do, because it'll try to push the flaps up even when they're fully up. So what I like to do is bind it to my joystick like this. So it's either you push it down and then if spring loads back to stop. You have your JATO stuff here for your JATO arming and jettison. I do not believe JATOs are implemented in DCS for the A-4E. You also have your spoiler. So you can have them off or armed for use when needed. And the spoilers are the surfaces that are atop the wings to help slow down during landing and some other things. You also have your automatic power control for carrier landings. You have off, standby, and then engage. And you also have a hot, standard, and cold temperature switch if you need to adjust that. Up here you have your gun pod panel up here. That's right, there's an entire panel just to control the gun pods. You have it for the left, right, center, and right-hand side. You either ready them or you can safe them. And then also for the gun pods, there's an off switch, and then there's a charge, which arms the gun pods. And then there's also a clear switch, which will actually disable the gun pods. It'll actually once you put switch into clear, it'll permanently, not permanently, but it will, for the remainder of that flight, it will take your gun pods and just clear them, and it'll actually cut off the ammunition feed, so you won't be able to fire them. And then you'd have to fly back to base, land, and then rearm with new gun pods, and then bring the switch up to off, rearm the gun pods, and then you can charge them, and then you'll have fully freshly loaded gun pods. So keep that in mind. It's something that you're supposed to do as part of your procedures when you come in to land with gun pods. You're supposed to come in and clear them so the ground crew doesn't get injured, possibly. But also, you also have the gun pod stations here, so you can select your gun pods down here. You have your nose indicators right here. Your wheels indicator right here. Nose, left and right. You have your flaps indicator right there. We're already starting to get into the front panel. This is how relatively quick this is going. You have your gear handle right there. You also have your AOA indexer here. So we're getting to the instruments now. You have your vertical velocity indicator right here. Emergency bomb switch and the emergency gear release here. You have your HSI right here. You have your ADI ball up here. It's your altimeter right there. Your speedometer up there. You have an ECM panel up here. This is your countermeasures sub panel up here. And then this bolted right here is ECM panel, which is also, this is a combination of an RWR and a ECM jammer. So that turns the system on and off. There's your audio options right there. Go off, standby, receive. This is basically just gives you information whether or not, it's basically just RWR on, telling you when you're getting painted or attacked or locked on. And then you have RPT, and that's the active jammer mode. So this will actually start jamming back when you're starting to get locked on. Let's put that on off. And that RP77 turns the jammer on. And then you have your RWR tones down here for PRF and missile lock. Also, I should mention this turns the countermeasure system on and off. The chaff power switch. Chaff handles, it's called chaff, but it handles both chaff and flares. And then you have the option to use the left bucket, the number 1 bucket, the number 2 bucket, and then or both. Going up here, as we work our way towards the center, you have day and night gun sights options. So it's either, depending on day or night, you can switch it and get a better visibility on your gun sight. And you can still adjust the gun sight brightness even further through this knob right here. You have your accelerometer right there for your G-loading or the flight. Gun sight elevation control for your gun sight. This is where you get your bills of depression. This is where you put in your depression for all your weapons. You have a labs timer for whenever you use your labs mode. You have some warning lights up here that pop up. You have your clock. ADI ball, like I mentioned before, is right next to the radar display. You also have the ability, if you click on up here, this red line up here, this is a filter for night flying, to have that on or off. You have different knobs for the brightness and gain, so you can just tune your display a little bit better. Working it all the way down to the center console. You have your stick, which will hide. Liquid oxygen remaining. Backup ADI. This is your navigation setup right here. So you can either choose between tachyon for your HSI, the nav or the navigation computers waypoint. You also have the ability to swap between weapons here. So test basically means it's off. You have walleye, which are not implemented for the A-4E mod, but you have strikes 1 and 2. So this is how you select the strikes. And that switch next to it is unavailable. You also have a volume knob for your sidewinders as well. Over here we have more radar display options. You can either view either profile or plan view, or you can do short range or long range view. Next to it, there's a button for the fuel tank. So this fuel quantity right here is measuring your internal fuel quantity. Pressing the button shows you your external fuel quantity. So this is how you tell if your external tanks are empty. Weapon select, this is more of your weapons panel down here. So you have off, rockets, rockets, bombs, and computer release down right there. Master arm switch is right next to it. Cabin pressure is next to that. You have your station selects over here. You have your arming for your bombs right there. You have either tail or nose and tail. You have your guns switch right here. I am not going to click the gun switch because you only have the ability to arm your guns 3 times. And then after you put the guns into the safe mode for the 3rd time, the guns are permanently safed, and there's no more ability for the guns to be charged. So you'll lose access to your guns. So don't be playing with the switch too much. Only turn it on ready when you're in the combat zone, and just leave it on. The better way to keep your guns saved, quote unquote, is to go to master mode right here and switch them off. And then down here you have your more weapons controls. You either have step or ripple options in either singles, pairs, or a salvo. And then you can use the ILS system here to adjust the release quantity. And then you have your drop intervals right here for spacing and between for all your firings in seconds. And then if you need to multiply that by 10, you can do that there. Alright, moving up, you have your radar altimeter here, and then you can adjust this knob to see what your bug is for your radar altimeter. You have your manual flight control handle there. You have your emergency generator handle there. Going up, we want to make sure we hit these panels up. We have panels up because we have your clock, your RPM gauge right here. For your percent RPM, you have your oil pressure gauge right there. You have your temperature gauge right there. You have your fuel flow gauge right here, and your fuel quantity. So that way you can easily look at your fuel flow and fuel quantity and get the amount of time you have left to be able to fly right there. You also have your resting hook handle right here. Goes from up all the way down, so you can lower and raise your resting hook for carrier landings. Down here, you have your nose and your nose trim for up and down and left and right. You have your you have our Doppler navigation panel right here with your drift indicator, whether or not you're going off of memory or just Doppler. So you can either you can turn it on to standby, the system on the standby, or whether you're on land, go to land, or wherever you're in sea, you go to sea. This is your this is your ILS panel for navigation right here. You can set your latitude and longitude here. You set your and then you can set your waypoint destination in latitude and longitude here. You set wind direction and speed right here. Magnetic variation, and then the system, whether it's in standby, D1, D2, which destination you want to go to. So you'd have 2 waypoints stored. You have your radio frequency preset selector down here. So you set your preset channel down here for the UHF panel down here. And it'll tell you what preset channel you are selected at, and it'll tell you what the frequency is for that preset right here. And obviously, this is your UHF selection switch to go to preset, manual, or guard a transmit. Set your manual frequency right here. Squawk, this is your squelch disable or leave it off or on for squelch disabling. Your volume for your radio. And your radio mode switch also is whether or not it's an off, transmit receive plus guard or ADF. Or knobs to adjust the frequency. This whole panel right here is your external lights panel. This is all the different various lights for the fueling probe, taxi, takeoff, landing, fuselage, wing, flashing, or more flashing or steady, all that fun stuff is right here. Internal floodlight here. TACAN navigation panel is right here. Set your 1s and 0s in the center knob, and the outer knob is your 100s, is your 10s. Go from off to just receiving or transmit and receive, and air to air if you need that. I don't believe there's a way to set the band either, so this is all going to be in the X-ray band. You have your volume switch right there for your TACAN if you need it. Your IFF panel right here, which is pretty much non-functional. Your CM panel is non-functional. You have your compass panel down here, so you use this to adjust your compass, your magnetic compass, make sure that's all synced and the like. Push to sync is unimplemented, so you can pretty much just use this to just adjust all your stuff, but it seems like most of it's unimplemented. So that's good. That makes it easier to use your compass. Your UHF panel here is also unimplemented for the volume. You have your internal lights panel down here for your instrument lights and your consoles and your floodlights. Nothing back here is modeled. The only other things that are modeled back here are your pilot's in-game air conditioning right here. And then you have back here the ability to raise and lower your seat, which is useful for carrier landings. And the MCL system for both the power and channel is what they used to call the ILS system. So think of the MCL as your A-4E's ILS system. And then you have the ability to turn on rate removal or have it off, but that really has nothing to do in game for any aircraft, I believe, at the moment. You have your other than that, pretty much everything else out here really is there's nothing really important back here. Fuel transfer doesn't really do anything. Navigation doesn't really do anything except for dead reckoning or Doppler. Just leave it on Doppler. You don't want to mess with this button switch back here too much. Otherwise, you'll disable the Doppler system. And again, there's that. Let's double check to make sure we're not missing anything up here. There's your AOA indexer panel right here for landing, for carrier landings. And let's lower the canopy, because you have a backup stopwatch up here as well. So you have a clock up here, and a backup compass up here. And then you have your mirrors. And that's it. Like I said, it's a pretty quick video for a cockpit overview. There really isn't nothing going on too much with the A-4E Skyhawk. It's a relatively small cockpit, relatively small aircraft, but back in the day, they really didn't make their cockpits too complex because there wasn't that much extra guns they really needed to worry about. So, in that case, this is Lock OS, signing out from DCS, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.